Hey everybody, it's Kyle Jetzel, the Driven Autism Dad. Today I wanted to share with you something that happened to me on Monday, just a couple of days ago. I went to a funeral, which is not an easy thing for me right now. As many of you know, I lost my wife almost 18 months ago. And it seems like since then I've been to way too many funerals, but when my wife passed away, there were so many people that showed up that supported us, and I really appreciated it. So I've made an effort to support others in the same way. And the funeral that I attended on Monday was of an older couple, and the mom had passed away. And I'm pretty good friends with Grandpa or Dad. He's an older gentleman, but something really interesting happened to me, or as I watched the proceedings. Something interesting happened, and it's in regards to something I'll share with you regarding autism. And this whole philosophy has helped me tremendously with my son, Eric, on the spectrum. And it was this. So I was sitting in the back and they were just getting started. They all asked us to stand in the chapel as the casket was rolled in. The casket was rolled in. We all sat down. And then the guy who led the funeral stood up and started talking about the proceedings and what was going to happen. And he was probably, I don't know, a minute or two into it when a gentleman opened the back door, came in, walked to the front, and sat with the family. And when he opened the door, the funeral had already started. Everything was real quiet. It was pretty somber, obviously. And when that door opened, pretty much the whole room glanced over there to see who was opening the door once the funeral had started. And as so often happens, I looked to the very front, and family members who were going to speak on behalf of their passed away mother and grandmother were up at the front facing us. And I saw a myriad of reactions to this gentleman coming in late. The father and patriarch of this whole family, whose wife had passed away, he grinned from ear to ear when he saw this gentleman come in late and walk to the front and sit down. However, many of those individuals who were up there, I'm guessing brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, even grandsons and granddaughters of this wonderful passed away woman, were not smiling about this. I picked out at least two of them who were very, very, very unhappy that he interrupted the proceedings, came in late, and sat down. And you could almost see on their faces how disappointed and discouraged they were by this individual who, and I'm gonna build a lot of stuff into this based on just very little information, but I'm guessing this gentleman is late to everything and may even be, that uncle or that family member who you just can't trust to be where they're supposed to be at the right time. You know what I'm talking about, right? I could be completely wrong. But just from watching the patriarch, the father, the husband of the passed away lady, and the other individuals, I saw two completely different reactions. One was of the patriarch, who was so happy to see him, who was so thrilled that he made it. The others were so disappointed and frustrated and angry that he came in late. And it reminded me of something that I learned from years and years ago from my father, who described to me this principle. He said, there's two ways to look at people. One is frustrated, and the other is fascinated. And he said, people are going to do things your whole life that frustrates you, but we don't always know what's going on in people's worlds. And generally, people do things for a reason. So he said, if people frustrate you, it's one of the ways to manage yourself in that situation is to change that frustration from anger and being frustrated that, in this case, they were late to the funeral, to being fascinated by what's going on, right? What's happening in that individual's life that's making them act that way or present that way or anything, right? And it really has helped me with my son Eric, because it's easy, very, very easy for us to get frustrated with our kids, with our extended family, with individuals who don't treat us it's so easy to get frustrated, and that frustration does not generally help us. It's not productive for us to really be frustrated at anybody. The results of being frustrated is that it messes us up inside, or maybe we say something to somebody and create uh, conflict, which is nobody ever likes to be called out on the crap they do. So conflict rarely solves problems. Fascination, however, frustration does not generally solve your own problems. It makes you angry. It makes you discouraged. It makes you feel bad about somebody. Fascination, on the other hand, makes you curious. It makes you wonder what's going on in their life. It makes you consider that you don't have the whole picture, right? And with my son on the autism spectrum, there were times when I was frustrated with his behaviors. And as I was able to convert my frustration into fascination, it changed the way I approached him and how I did things, right? And my fascination started to help me to understand he's doing these things for a reason. I need to understand those reasons. And as I understand those reasons, I can help him manage those things in a better way, right? And that became productive for me with my son on the autism spectrum. When he would do things, when he would smash things, when he would tear stuff up, when he would scream and yell and get aggressive, it's easy to be frustrated. But when you're fascinated, when you say, I wonder what's going on, right? What is going on that's leading to this behavior? It changes you, and it changes the way you approach him, and it changes the way you manage those situations. And generally, that is in a better way, right? One of the things my oldest son recently saw me deal with my oldest typical son saw me deal with my son who was being a little bit aggressive. And he did something in his room. He smashed something in his room. And I ran up there and I said, are you okay? I opened the door. I knocked on the door and I said, are you okay? And initially he was really angry. And when I said that, are you okay? I knew I was fascinated, right? I wasn't frustrated. I mean, I was frustrated, but that's not helpful. What is helpful is to say, what's going on, right? What can I help with? And when I said, are you okay? His demeanor changed. And he was able to bring himself down very quickly and start to express or try to communicate the issues he was facing. And I was able to help him get where he needed to be a lot quicker. And it's fascinating when you start doing this with your kids on the spectrum, even with your typical kids. When you have disagreements, when things are going wrong with them, it's typically something else, right? And if we ask those questions, what's happened, man? Why are you angry at me or frustrated? What's going on? It changes people. And I'll share one last story with you that I think is fascinating, because this works not just with our kids, not just with our kids on the spectrum, but everybody. And I remember one time, a long time ago, I was driving my kids to school one day, and there was a four-way stop. When I dropped my kids off from school, I would come to a four-way stop. And, by law, if two people come to a four-way stop at the same time, by law, the one on the right-hand side goes first. That's the law. That's the way the law is written that way. When two people come at the same time, there's no questions, right? We know the law. Well, one day I dropped my kids off at school and I stopped at a four-way stop, and I was on the right and he was on the left. And we stopped at the same time, and I know the law, right? So I thought, I'll go, right? Because that's the law. So I started to drive, and I could see as soon as I pulled out and started to drive, he went into fury, right? He was in a big truck. This was back in Texas when it happened. And he came around the corner, and I could see he got right behind me on my tail and started screaming and yelling and pointing his finger at me. And I had enraged this guy, right? Well, I'm not a small man. I can take care of myself. And initially I thought, who is this idiot, man? Does he not know the freaking law? He better watch himself. This is all going through my mind in a matter of seconds, right? He's in a big giant lifted truck. Typically, guys that drive those trucks aren't big giant men, right? I'm jumping to conclusions here, but all this is going through my mind. And as he pulled up next to me, I looked over and he's still screaming at me, pointing his finger at me, just yelling and screaming. And I looked and he was way too close to the steering wheel, right? I know this guy's not a big guy now. And he better watch himself because I am not to be messed with, right? I know how to handle myself. The dude is about to take the wrong direction in this case. I'm not that guy. I'm really not. All this is going through my mind, right? And then I thought, from frustration to fascination, almost in an instant. And so I thought, I wonder what's going on with this guy that's creating this world of anger and frustration and fury for him. And so we were driving along beside each other. I kept looking, he kept screaming and yelling. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to find out. And so we got to a stoplight, and he was still next to me, just glaring at me. So I rolled down my window, and I think he thought it was about to get escalated even more. So he rolled his window down, and I kind of leaned down and looked at him, and I said, hey, buddy, if I did something to upset you, I sure am sorry. I really didn't mean to. I sure do apologize if I upset you. And he went from rage, like ready to fight, to just went from 100 down to 0. And he said, oh, well, no, it's okay. It's okay. And he went from wanting to fight me to just, oh, don't worry about it. Right. And I said, you know what? I saw how frustrated you were. And I apologize. I don't want to be the reason you're upset today, man. Please forgive me. And he said, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it, bro. And it was from 100 to 0. And it kind of shocked me. I knew he would come down, but not that quickly. Well, the very next day, we come to the same four-way stop at the same time, same guy, right? And I'm thinking, I'm not going to mess with this guy again. Who knows what's going on in his world? And so I waved him on, like, you go. And he was like, oh, no, you go. And now all of a sudden we're best friends, right? And it's because I went from frustration to fascination. We don't know what's going on for people. We don't know what's tipping them, what's leading them, what's happening in their world. But if we can be fascinated by those reactions and we start asking questions and diving in, we might find we can be helpful. This works with our kids on the autism spectrum. It works with our family members. It works with people we don't even know. And I've used it over and over. So hopefully that's helpful. From frustration to fascination. Try it today. The next time you get frustrated, get fascinated and ask yourself, what's going on? I wonder if I can be helpful, and watch what happens. Hopefully that's helpful. This is Kyle, the Driven Autism Dad, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.